Welcome back to the Hearthstone Collegiate National Championships. 2 matches down, 1 more to go for week 3 of this Swiss tournament. My name is Cora Georgiou, and I'm joined on the desk by Nathan. That's Admirable Zamora. Nathan, how you feeling about today so far?
Pretty good. It's been a lot of solid play so far today, and a couple of unique choices so far. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the third match could bring.
Yeah, well, our third match is going to be University of Michigan versus Ohio State University. This is a very high-profile match. These are 2 huge schools, very competitive when it comes to actual sports. So going to be interesting to see how they do when it comes to esports.
Yeah, a really interesting choice here from University of Michigan, Druid and Priest, alongside the Shaman and Warlock. We saw this utilized a little bit earlier in a similar fashion where they were trying to really put the pressure on their opponent, which one of those they're going to self-ban away. And for Ohio State University, Shaman, Druid, Warlock, and Rogue. That Rogue looking like it's got some prime targets on the side of University of Michigan.
Although, you know what? We've seen this earlier, and the Rogue did struggle. But let's go ahead and take a closer look at University of Michigan. It is Orion Mango, Thrag Tusk, and Darkhawk 2000, Biology, Computer Science, and Finance.
I bet that Thrag Tusk guy has been playing cards for quite a bit. And look at Orion Mango. Is that a hat? Or is it supposed to be like a hat?
It's hard to tell. It looks like a hat on a stick with ears.
Hat on a stick. Don't think I've ever had one of those from the carnival.
No hats on sticks here, but hopefully Mom's watching.
I mean, it's got to be.
In that case, hi, Mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and take a look at Ohio State University's roster.
Yeah, Stone and Bone, Scarbo, and Swanky Tiger, Natural Resource Management, Music, and Psychology. 3 majors that, if you don't really think about it, have a lot in common.
Yep, so we're just not going to think about it. These guys are going to have an easy time getting jobs, I'm sure. The Hearthstone money sure could help.
Ooh. Look at the Valentine's Day spirit with these folks.
You know what? This makes a lot of sense. Ohio State University, I have never met more passionate fans. I really haven't. Then again, I haven't met anybody from the University of Michigan, so I don't know. But all I know is I had one guy in my high school who went to Ohio State, and he just wouldn't ever stop shouting OHIO. So
I can respect that. That school spirit means a lot. Look, I'm telling you right now, confidence and belief is powerful.
Absolutely. And it is going to be 2 very high-profile teams coming up against each other. And these 2 lineups, going to be interesting to see how they work out. Let's take a look at the self-bans. University of Michigan banning their Warlock, and Ohio State banning the Shaman. So we're going to see a Priest finally today.
Yeah, and a Druid in the same lineup. This is a good old-fashioned rumble here. I'm a little bit worried for University of Michigan. We've seen Druid struggle a lot. I think Priest is, it's definitely competitive, but I would tend to say on the weaker side of things. And they've got both that they got to win with. Ohio State, I don't know. This is looking kind of weird. I'm interested now.
Is there any deck on Ohio State's side that University of Michigan could potentially target with their lineup?
No.
Well, I mean, we might just have to get a little lucky.
Yeah. I'm really surprised Ohio State took out their Shaman here as well. We've certainly been seeing it have a little bit rougher of a time today, I think, than it normally does, but that's an incredibly powerful deck, and it's widely considered the most powerful one in the game. So a lot of times players bring tech choices specifically for that matchup, but I'd say it's one you want there.
Well, we're going to go ahead and get into game number 1. It is going to be the Shaman for Michigan and the Reno Warlock for Ohio State.
Yeah, the Reno Warlock here looking to simply offset the aggression that Michigan wants to apply in this game. They want to apply overwhelming pressure and end it as quickly as possible. And for Ohio State, it's simply a matter of clearing out all those threats that they throw at them and then finding ways to stabilize, whether that comes in taunts or whether that comes with the man himself, Reno Jackson, who makes you rich.
But how is Ohio State going to close out this game? Even if they manage to thwart all of the early aggression and heal back up, how are they actually going to kill Michigan?
Yeah, a lot of that just boils down to the stabilizing tool in general. It's kind of like a mishmash of minions and a ragtag crew that gets the job done. But when you have all the cards and you have all the life, it doesn't really matter what kinds of minions you have, just as long as they actually deal damage. So when they start getting towards their later turns, just look for any of their sizable threats to be significant.
All right, and a lot of the Reno Warlocks that we've been seeing lately are non-combo Warlocks. So what is the difference between the non-combo Reno Warlock and the combo?
The ones that have tended to cut combo, and as a result, the massive burst potential that comes for their deck, they tend to just play a lower curve. And here in Ohio State's hand, we already see Mind Control Tech. It's a card that is often found in the Reno builds, but has kind of been set aside in favor of just more reliable cards. So when Ohio State's trimming out those big combo pieces that are clunky versus aggressive decks, they're tending to tailor that deck specifically against aggression. Just those few extra cards that can make a difference some games.
So Ohio State looking to not have the combo, because in that case it would put them, likely with their tech cards, in a more favorable position against Michigan here. But we'll have to see ultimately what they decided to go with. And Michigan taking their full 90 seconds, rightfully so, deciding to go with the Jade Claws, get that Mistress of Mixtures off the board early. Do you think it's right to sacrifice the coin here?
It definitely could be. I mean, Mistress of Mixtures is going to help challenge pretty much everything Michigan plays for the rest of the game, so I could see this opening hand going a lot of different ways, but I think their main objective is just get together a board that they can actually put some pressure on with. And when Ohio State just has a bunch of early cards, that ends up being tough. They start to curve out at a certain point, and they always threaten board clears. So those early cards really make the difference for Ohio State. Michigan just choosing to go with the South Sea deckhand here. I think that's a large reason why they went with the Jade Claws, is they had this reload on turn 2.
Yeah, well, it absolutely worked out very well for them. They are pushing a lot of pressure very early on. And there is Lord Jiraxis coming into the hand of Ohio State. Do we see Lord Jiraxis in both the combo and non-combo variants? What's his role, really, in this deck?
Yeah, his role is mainly just to play the inevitability engine. You do often find it in combo builds, but I would tend to say it's a little less common. But in Ohio State's case, it's looking like they don't have combo in their deck. So that's just meant to act as the ultimate endgame tool to generate value.
Well, it's looking like Ohio State has two really options here. Demon Wrath clears off this board very cleanly, and Gang Boss also challenges it very nicely. So they are giving it a lot of thought. Essentially, they need to mitigate the early damage from Michigan until they find their own Reno Jackson, and then that is when they will be able to turn the tide of this game.
Yeah, so that just boils down to what's the best way to do that. And here, I'm just looking at Imp Gang Boss as being a tremendous card. The damage that's on board is fairly nominal, and this would also help them fight against Feral Spirit and against Totem Golem, should that show up. And if Flame Tongue manages to come to board, that's a lot of damage Michigan would sink into Imp Gang Boss, only to set up for the Demon Wrath. And in this situation, they're very rarely trading without Flame Tongue Totem, so it might even activate the Mind Control deck.
Well, looking to the next couple of turns, Ohio State's hand is a bit clunky. And ultimately, Life Tap will only put them closer to dying if they don't find that Reno Jackson.
Whoa.
Those are probably the three best options.
My, oh my. That is a lot. So this is a situation that I honestly don't know if Steady Shot or Life Tap's better. I would venture to say it's Steady Shot.
They would agree.
It's hard to get better than 2 damage for 2 mana. And they are going to Flame Tongue as well.
Do you push damage here?
I'm curious if they're ever considering Mind Control Tech. If that's the case, there is a lot of merit to actually double trading.
I don't know. I feel like they're going to attack in with the Jade Claws. Yeah, I feel like it's so easy to disregard Mind Control Tech, especially in this meta. It's being taken out of a lot of decks, and even when it is included, it's never that impactful.
This could be... Oh, well, that'll change things. So ignore the Mind Control Tech. It's a Hellfire. Down to 17. And that's where Steady Shot ends up being important. So Michigan, it makes a lot of sense that they went with Steady Shot over the Life Tap. If their board gets cleared, they don't necessarily need to just draw more cards. They just need to deal more damage. If Ohio State doesn't have Reno Jackson, that's their main win condition, is now the Steady Shot. 2 damage every turn.
It never feels good to be put in the position where you have to hope that your opponent doesn't have a single card.
It feels bad.
Because so often they have it.
It feels bad, but it's often just the right way to play. And Michigan here, I like the Feral Spirit and the Spirit Claws. This actually puts more immediate damage on board, and it starts to get those swings of Spirit Claws active. It's going to take them time to have that Spirit Claw put together damage. And so in this spot, it simply represents 3, but it's likely to be enough.
Yeah, and if they draw Blood Mage Thalnos or Azure Drake, then that's going to be more damage overall. So this represents the most damage on board. Obviously, you want to weave in those hero powers, but when you can do more damage overall, That's a lot of damage.
And this is where Ohio State's back's really against the wall. They actually forego the life tap this turn just in fear of dying early on. So the amount of pressure that Michigan was able to apply with turn 1 Jade Claw and then turn 2 South Sea Deckhand ended up being a lot. This is likely to be too much.
Even with incredibly well-timed Hellfire and, Imp Gang Boss, which was really effective on that board.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Demon Wrath was the call. They took a lot of damage because they didn't play Demon Wrath, and now the Demon Wrath's stuck in hand.
And again, just illustrating the power of that Flame Tongue Totem.
Yeah, this could have been very much a situation where you simply take the value you can get immediately.
So essentially, this is boiling down to Ohio State needs to find Reno, and Michigan pretty much has everything that they need.
Yeah, this might be Reno or bust. And honestly, that might have been a reason to life tap on the previous turn.
Okay.
I don't think that's... Well, the armor could certainly extend the game.
It's only 4 for the 1-mana potion, but you could couple that with deal 3 damage and
it's
clear
gotta
off
be
the
a
board.
1-mana potion here. I don't think they have the liberty of trying to get greedy.
Well, they're really thinking about it. And you know what, honestly? There's a lot of situations where, obviously you want to play to win instead of play not to lose. In this case, they could be thinking, if Michigan, for some reason, doesn't have any burn in hand, and we go with this 5-cost potion, maybe we'll be in a better position to win. But if they go with the 1, which they do, they're more likely to have one more turn to draw Reno Jackson.
Yep. And 4-Armor arrives, and I'm curious if they took the draw card option on this, or if they took one of the others. I think I would have liked to see the draw card and then 4-Armor. That's exactly what they took.
Very smart.
So one more draw after this for the man himself. Ohio State needs the miracle draw.
All right, how much does Michigan have? Lava Burst, Lightning Bolt, and Steady Shot.
Oh, that's
5, 8, 10.
That's 6 mana available, correct? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, they're just dead, actually.
Yep, that would be 13. Ohio State has exactly 13. That is going to be lethal for Michigan. After counting it all up, they were not overloaded from the previous turn, and that has given them game number 1.
Yeah, I don't know how I counted 5 mana, but I counted 5 mana for some reason. It's 6 instead.
We got 6 in the end, and then we got 13, and then Ohio State was dead. So hopefully Mom's proud because Michigan has come away with a pretty smooth game number 1. No Reno in Ohio State's hand.
Shaman is just something, isn't it?
In a lot of cases, we've seen it be less than something. But when it's at its peak performance, I mean, you understand why Spirit Claws and Small Time Buccaneer are getting nerfed. Let's just put it that way.
Finley, too. I mean, Finley did a lot of work in that game.
Yeah.
That Steady Shot, that was a big deal. 2 extra damage. Closed the game a turn earlier.
Well, University of Michigan, an early win with the Shaman, needing to find wins still, however, with those 2 wildcard decks. It's the Druid and the Priest, and Ohio State's lineup could potentially prey on those Tier 2 choices.
And that's what it's looking like to me. The Priest has 3 bad matchups across the board here. The Druid has, 1 bad matchup, 1 50-50, and then 1 favorable. This is going to be tough. University of Michigan is going to have to win an unfavored matchup at some point in this set if they want to take it.
Yeah, really fascinating. We actually saw in our last match, in the interview we did, the team talked about bringing a lineup to target aggro in the early weeks of this tournament, and then simply swapping to bringing the best 4 decks in the game. What do you think is the best way to craft a lineup right now?
I'm a bring the best stuff kind of guy. Nyria said in an interview recently, after he made top 8 in a big tournament overseas, that he's really thought about building lineups. And sometimes it's right to counter your opponent's strategies. Sometimes it's right to brew up some new decks and be a little bit more unpredictable. And sometimes it's right to just bring the best stuff. And for that tournament, he just brought the best stuff. And it was a fantastic tournament for him. And it brought him a lot of success. And he did a very similar thing at the EU playoffs over the weekend for HCT. And he put himself through to the top 4, defeating his teammate in the top 8. And they both very much were just bringing good stuff. Good stuff wins games.
You heard it here first, folks. Bring the decks with the best win rates, and sometimes you will just benefit because of it. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Druid and the Priest were, maybe they were comfort picks. Maybe there is some kind of inherent strategy behind University of Michigan's deck choices. Who knows? Either way, they're in for a bit of a long road ahead of them.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit skeptical. You expect to face against Pirate Warrior very often. You expect to face against Shaman very often. And those are two decks that very much struggle against those. So what common matchup does Priest and Druid have that it thrives against?
Well, the Priest can be
Reno
decent
Mage.
against the Shaman.
But again, this is self-banned format. So when your opponents bring Reno Mage and they see Druid and Priest, they can just take that out of their lineup.
Yeah, the self-banned format does give you a different way of crafting your lineup. You can bring two solid decks, one deck that's good against control, one deck that's good against aggro, and sort of build your lineup on the fly to target something. In this case, it seems like there were two wildcard decks that were both built to target the same thing. We'll see if it works out. So it's going to be the Druid versus the Reno Warlock. And how does this matchup look?
Oftentimes, Ohio State is fairly reliant on finding an early threat. In this case, Mountain Giant. But Twilight Drake also is serviceable in the matchup. Those are the two heavy hitters where they'll be life tapping on turn 2 and 3, then try to power out one of those threats. Where for Michigan, it's about ramping up that early game mana. And the mana ramp is the most important part. You actually saw Michigan hang on to Jade Druid in here. And I think this is a mistake. You know, two of the key cards in this deck are Wild Growth and Jade Blossom. If they get ahead of the curve, it means that Nourish gets unlocked. It means that Gadgets and Auctioneer's turns hit sooner. It means that Azure Drake is hitting on board in a timely fashion with your opponent's threats. When you delay that by keeping Jade Spirit, sure, you get to ramp up your Jades, but ramping up the Jades comes at almost any time you want if you're in Michigan's position. The real key is the mana. You don't have all the time to ramp your mana.
Yeah, we saw the Jade Druid struggle very much against the aggressive Shaman deck, simply because drawing Wild Growth, Jade Blossom, Innervate still set them behind so far. Although they had access to more mana, they were too far behind on board to catch back up. This is a matchup where Michigan has the time, they have the liberty to use those ramp cards and push themselves ahead to get bigger threats on board faster. They don't have to worry about dying early.
Yeah, well, they might this game. It's Mountain Giant and Faceless Shambler. Those are the two heavy-hitting threats. Those are the exact cards Ohio State is looking for. A tremendous opening draw for them.
Yeah, absolutely going to be very difficult for Michigan to deal with. Does the Jade Druid usually run Mulch?
A lot of times, yeah. I think that 2 Mulch has started to become more standard in these builds because they simply recognize what they're actually trying to beat. It's moved away from contesting aggressive builds quite as much and more towards just beating up on late game minions. And some of them are incredibly powerful, and some of them hit a lot earlier than you'd hope they do. So Mulch, a very key card if they're going to fight off against Mountain Giant and Faceless Shambler.
This is going to be tough. If Ohio State is able to put together these two key cards, this could just be enough board presence that Michigan has no way of fending it off.
Yeah, and this Jade Spirit now kind of coming back to haunt the hand. You know, maybe one card deeper they would have been able to find something, but their pan out so far has just been pretty abysmal.
It's awkward.
And Ancient of War, we touched on that one as well. It's hard for this deck to really find a time to sink 7 mana into a card.
Yeah. Even if you get early Innervates plus Ancient of War, the rest of your curve can be thrown off. It's an awkward deck if you don't get Wild Growth, Jade Blossom, Innervate early on. And that's what Michigan is forced to deal with at this point.
This Mountain Giant is a heap of trouble for Michigan. Wait a minute, why is this Mountain Giant 5 mana?
Mistress of Mixtures.
They played Mistress of Mixtures on turn 1.
Yep.
I forgot to even talk about that. Oh, my word. Oh, well,
Why would you play Mistress of Mixtures against a Jade Druid deck?
that's actually a big mistake, and this is the reason why, is now they can't play the Mountain Giant on turn 4. So Ohio State, actually, they might be stepping behind now, because suddenly Michigan's got an opening.
Yeah, that's a great oversight. I guess on both our part and theirs. Yeah, they played the Mistress of Mixtures, and then Michigan countered with the Living Roots. But you're not worried about Michigan dealing you so much damage that you're going to die. The Mistress of Mixtures is an anti-aggro tech choice. In this case, it's a card you keep in your hand because then you get to play Mountain Giant one turn earlier.
Yeah.
This could come back to bite them.
It's still going to be strong, but Michigan's had to turn into just freely Nourish now. Well, oh my.
That's a good draw.
Yeah, I mean, they have the Siphon Soul as well, so they're able to really put the test to Michigan still. And, well, the Mulch finds the hand.
And that's actually going to look pretty darn good with that Jade Spirit that
We
they
got
kept.
a game here.
I was worried for a bit.
We got a game here, boys and girls.
But imagine if this Giant came down 1 turn earlier.
Would have been 8 extra damage, that's for sure. And Faceless Shambler would have been on board as well.
Yeah, you would have had 2 8/8s. All right, Reno coming into the hand of Ohio State. And Zeril Poisoned Mind, a rogue legendary that you don't even see getting played a lot in Rogue anymore, but it's not a bad card.
Yeah, it's an interesting card. Offers some utility, but the reliability of it is really what I think would end up hurting that card the most. There's 5 toxins that are available from it, and they range from dealing damage to hiding your own minions to bouncing them back to your hand, getting more attack. Just a lot of little utility stuff.
Yeah, nothing super impactful.
Ohio State looking for the Dirty Rat into second-rate Bruiser.
It's definitely
Yeah, I think,
not what they wanted to see.
I think once they see the Ancient of War come out, the 5/5 is starting to challenge the board a little bit, so rather than just give the second-rate Bruiser away to the Ancient of War here, instead they're going to play Zeril and hope to find some utility to use. But now Michigan's starting to scale.
Yeah, once they get into their later turns, they can really do much more with their cards, assuming that they're able to draw continual draw engine. There are 2 Nourishes in the deck. You see the 2 Azure Drakes per cycle. If they ever, fizzle out, they're going to have a lot of trouble staying in this game. But if they can find those draw mechanics, they're going to have a much easier time of pushing onto the board than Ohio State will.
Yeah, there are still plenty of draw mechanics in the deck, though. And now the Jades are going to start rolling as well. So Michigan looking like if they can pick up just a tad more draw and not gas out, that they may have this game in the bag. We're still a long way to go, but
It's a lot closer than we thought it would be. If there was Mountain Giant Faceless Shambler on the board, this game certainly would have gone very differently.
It quite literally boils down to that early stage. That Mistress of Mixtures on turn 1, I think, cost Ohio State a lot of board presence.
All right, Michigan's trading off the board, going to go ahead and Jade Blossom. Not so much that it puts them to 10 on the following turn. That's fine, but it's not the big deal. The big deal now is they've got the mana. Now they need to ramp the golems.
This is looking weak.
I mean, they've got a full hand.
Oh my, if they play second-rate Bruiser,
They can Shadow Flame it.
that would have to be it, I think. This board's getting a little bit out of hand.
I don't think that's too bad.
Imagine if
It puts the onus on Michigan again to establish onto the board.
Okay, my fears for them is to play the Faceless Shambler, because then they just get steamrolled
By swipe.
by that swipe, because there's another Azure Drake alongside it. That would be devastating.
I mean, you've got Rag in hand, so ideally Rag sticks for a turn and then you Shambler.
I have Twisting Nether too. It's just they have plenty of answers to what's going on. Maybe you do Faceless Shambler. Nah, you Shadow Flame.
Yeah, I like it. It's an easy enough clear.
Well, that's not card draw, so
That is, though, technically.
yeah, it's cycle. They would love to couple this with Gadget and Auctioneer. Honestly, they may be able to just wait a turn on this Wild Growth. I don't think I would, but maybe you Wild Growth and don't actually draw the card immediately. They draw Gadget and Auctioneer. That excess mana does represent a second card draw. So they are looking for something to do this turn, it looks like.
Well, there's 3 cards. So now Michigan is not worried about fizzling out as far as ways to apply pressure to the board. This was a fairly weak turn, all things considered, but now their golems are at 4/4. After this, the only AoE that Ohio State has that will be able to remove the golems is the Twisting Nether.
Yeah, instantaneous. Ragnaros as well, and Ragnaros hits face.
Not what they wanted to see.
Is that a mulch? Oh, I thought that was a mulch for a second. I was like, oh my gosh.
Well, the Wrath's still good. With spell damage and the Drake, you can clear off that Rag relatively painlessly. It's not bad. Yeah, Ohio State not happy with that hit to the face.
It was awfully close, but no cigar. Wow. There's a lot of gas in the tank for Michigan now.
All right, so we're going to see the Discover a spell. Minions, unfortunately, not usually seen from Raven Idol. In certain cases, they're pretty good. But here is not going to be one of them.
Yeah, fairly weak Raven Idol as well. Found just next to no utility. But the Azure Drake stays. And if it stayed one turn, it's pretty likely to stay around for two. So Ohio State has to sit back and think for a moment. How do we get back into this game?
And it's going to be tough.
Sylvanas is looking good, though. Now, I don't think that they're primed to really find a lot of Sylvanas value in this matchup until the Jade starts scaling. So there's a lot of argument for and against it. It's just number one, you might just be able to steal a big minion back later. And this is actually kind of a brilliant move, I think, to consider the Reno Jackson. I mean, your life total's typically not under pressure. It's just simply the threat size from Michigan. When your life total's under pressure, it's just because there's a lot of big Jade stuff on board you have to handle at once. So this challenges the Azure Drake, gets them back 10 life. They can keep life tapping for cards and not be forced to play this later on in an uncomfortable spot.
Yeah, all the Sylvanas would really do is ensure a clear on the Azure Drake and likely take 2 mana from your opponent on their following turn. But Ohio State is saying here, Sylvanas is more valuable in this matchup. We can potentially steal something very large with the Sylvanas. We're going to hold on to it. The Reno Jackson is not one of the more valuable cards.
Yeah,
so
its purpose is largely lost in this matchup. It's meant to just be a big stabilizing tool, where the stabilizing tool for Ohio State in this game is by taking care of very large Jade minions, not by healing to 30.
Yeah, Kazakh is definitely the Highlander card that's going to give you a better shot at winning this game than Reno Jackson.
I would definitely agree with that as well. The board swing with like a resurrect 3 dead minions and give them +6 health from Kazakus is the one that I often see Druids struggle with the most.
Yeah, usually against Reno Mage, because in that case, Kazakus and Alexstrasza Burn are the only ways that Reno Mage beats the Jade Druid, but that also applies to the Reno Warlock.
Yep, and the damage now for Michigan does become more relevant, given that they've seen Reno Jackson at this point.
All right, so now the Sylvanas it's pretty awkward for Michigan to have to clear off. It does give Michigan the opportunity to simply push face, but then Ohio State can recover a lot easier on the following turn.
Yeah, Defender of Argus is really the key card here. I'm actually curious if you taunt up maybe just Sylvanas in this spot. If they taunt up the Reno Jackson and the Sylvanas, Michigan can more mold their attacks to push damage into Reno, weaken their own minions that are going to get stolen away. If they simply taunt up Sylvanas, that has to be the first one they get through, which means a steal is going to happen.
Yep, the 1/1 and the taunt is not nearly
See the way he's pointing to? He's looking at the screen and pointing to the far right. He's going, play it just on the Sylvanas and force the issue onto Michigan.
Michigan wishing that they had Keeper of the Grove in their deck, or they will be once they see the Defender of Argus come down. Yeah.
This is smart.
Very, very nice positioning by Ohio State there. And actually, that's a really great example of team communication. You can see that they were thinking it out. They were talking over where's the best place to put this Defender of Argus. They came to the right conclusion.
Yeah, suddenly. I don't know, man.
I mean, how does Michigan get through this Sylvanas? I mean, they have to give up something.
I mean, there's not really much choice on that front. The question is just how to sequence this. Wow, this is really complicated math.
The Sylvanas warrants 2 trades, or you can swipe something. The 2 damage goes on to the Sylvanas because of the spell damage. You run in probably the Jade Golem. Sylvanas still steals something. Is there any way to sequence this so that you leave your opponent with no board and you give yourself something?
Well, it would be the 50-50 is what that would be at that point. You attack with the Jade Behemoth, you attack with the Jade Golem, and hope it steals away the Jade Behemoth. I think 50-50 actually might just be the best situation they got here, but the rope's burning. They've got to make a decision.
Not enough time.
They just leave Sylvanas there? It's
Yeah.
what it looked like. Wow.
Man.
Honestly, it's not that bad of a play because when they do it this way, it continues to compound that board tension where if Michigan had simply attacked and they failed on the Sylvanas stealing maybe Azure Drake, they actually get to attack with that extra minion. In this spot, Ohio State doesn't actually get to attack with that extra minion. The thing they get, though, is to evaluate how much value they can get out of dictating the pace this way. It's honestly kind of back-to-back brilliant plays where the Sylvanas looks really awkward on board, and then Michigan goes, man, maybe we can get a more favorable spot for this. This is weird.
This is very weird.
I don't think I've ever quite seen a board like this.
So now Ohio State, if they were to run the Argus into something and Hellfire, they could guarantee a steal on either a 5-2 or a 4-2, or a 4-1, excuse me. It's looking like that's what they're going for.
Curious that.
This ended up being not the most high value Sylvanas.
It is pretty high value, honestly, because they got to utilize the Hellfire, which is normally a fairly dead card in the matchup. And so they got some gas out of that, and then Michigan draws one of the worst cards in their deck with Living Roots. Suddenly, Michigan's looking gassed out, and Ohio State's got plenty to back this up.
Michigan's still with Gadgets and Auctioneer in deck, second Nourish, Wild Growth for Cycle.
Now, they didn't life tap. Not life tapping is a bit interesting to me. I'm curious what the deck size is, and then also whether or not they felt that there were lethal opportunities for Michigan in this situation. So 12 cards, plenty of cards left, not really any danger of fatigue. And 8 cards there means a little bit less because Michigan can always shuffle in Jade Idols and keep going from there. But for Ohio State, not life tapping is a bit curious. Extra card seems like it'd be good this hand.
You know what? The sooner that Ohio State finds Emperor Thaurissan, then maybe they end up with Lord Jirax's hero power, and Infernals end up being, you know, very important in this matchup. So Michigan, using that Feral Rage that they got from Raven Idol, they're able to kill off the Imp Gang boss, trying to keep this 5-2 Golem alive because they have no more gas in hand. They need to make the most out of the minions that they have on board.
Yeah, and this is looking like it will warrant some sort of removal here. There's no threat left in hand. They do have the +3 attack toxin from Zeril, so some opportunity there to trade up into one of these golems. But every single Jade draw for Michigan is going to start being really scary. And if they pick up a card draw spell, look out.
Yeah, if Michigan can get Nourish off the top, that's going to be a lot for Ohio State to deal with. Granted, Ohio State can deal with one large board state with Twisting Nether and 2 large single minions with Blast Crystal and Siphon Soul. But Michigan will have, quite literally, endless fuel with the Jade Idol cycle into the deck. There's only so many board states that Ohio State can deal with before Michigan will simply overwhelm them and take this game inevitably.
Yeah, I think Auctioneer is probably the scariest draw that Ohio State could face right now. Oh, if they had life tap first, they wouldn't have had to use that Blast Crystal. Got a sequence. Oh,
and there's the gadget. Okay, well,
there's about a 25% chance to draw it this turn if there's 2 of them in the deck. So Michigan.
See what Michigan can find.
Honestly, I'm curious if, well, they might still Feral Rage, but oh my. I mean, you definitely Feral Rage this turn. I'm just curious if you go for armor or attack.
You can put your opponent at 9, and you've seen Reno already.
Yeah, I like attack. Ooh, baby.
Wow. Okay, now you can put them at 8.
Oh, baby.
And there's Aya.
That's a lot of stuff.
Pretty much Ohio State's worst nightmare.
That's a lot of stuff.
Because this is a board you feel very pressured to use Twisting Nether on. But if you do that, then how do you answer Aya Blackpaw?
This is why the matchup is so difficult for Ohio State, is even when they can have these pull-ahead spots, it definitely can still be tough for them. Now, that being said, Ohio State did make the mistake of the turn 1 Mistress of Mixtures, which delayed the Mountain Giant. If they hadn't delayed that Mountain Giant, that Faceless Shambler would have been an 8/8 instead of still in hand. I
mean, it's impossible to tell exactly what could have happened, but 2 8/8s on board one 8/8 that Michigan consistently could not have dealt with, because they only had one mulch. I mean, Ohio State could have closed this game out on turn 8.
I think this is it. I mean, where do they get out of this?
They don't. I mean, you siphon soul the 8/8, you go up to. Then how do you deal with the Aya and the Fandral? You're at 11. They have 9.
Woo!
It's just not going to be enough over the next 2 turns. Ohio State has no way to full clear this board, put themselves in a favorable position on board, and then somehow not die in 2 turns.
If there's one guy that can do it, it's probably Kazakis, but...
Man, I have a lot of faith in him, too. He's performed some miracles.
Polymorph a random enemy, hits the Aya, and then freeze 2 random minions. They're going for a 10, so their plan is to live to the following turn, so they got to take Mystic Wool, and then there's Resurrect 3 dead minions.
Uh-huh.
So
that's pretty good.
Siphon Soul hits on the Jade Golem here. They're facing down 9 damage, and they're at 11. So they're dead over 2 turns. And they have to actually take care of the sheeps that are in play as well. So the Mystic Wool / Resurrection Potion is going to have to bring back a taunt if they want to live.
Bruiser. It's pretty much it.
This is really bad for Ohio State.
I don't know. I see a way. It doesn't look great.
I believe the last card should be Jade Idol.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Jade Idol. When did they play the second Jade Idol? Now that's a kicker. Plot twist.
When did they play the second Jade Idol?
It's a very good question. But...
We need to take more notes, like Ohio State and Michigan.
Indeed.
They are good examples of a studious collegiate athlete.
Ohio State has to give... Look at the... He's just head name. He's like, oh, gosh.
If Michigan plays the Jade Behemoth here... Man.
Your power to 2. So 2 turns off killing is Michigan. I don't know. Maybe there's another way to get time here. I mean, say like Power Overwhelming, run over the Fandral, and just play Faceless Shambler.
And you can Drake and Shambler.
Oh, yeah. You can just do that, too.
You can't brand Drake Shambler. But that would be sweet.
It's Fade Leaf. Fade Leaf hides a minion. Is that correct?
Yes. It is the stealth one. So not useful here.
So would they rather have a 10 health taunt, or would they rather have a 7/7? You know, something else to consider, too, is just, can they push damage? I mean, Michigan's now in fatigue.
Oh, man.
You know, is there a turn here where you have an opportunity to maybe Power Overwhelming and Lord Jaraxxus to get those final points of damage?
I mean, and they have to assume that Michigan does not have Jade Idol in hand. If they had it, they would have played it, because Fandral's on board. So... I mean, if they've been paying close attention, which I think they haven't seen Brand, they haven't seen second Jade Behemoth. They know what's in Michigan's hand.
Wow. Okay, I was like, they're just going for the giant taunt here. They got to do something. These have been close calls as we reach the clutch moments here.
They realize that 1 health is more important than 3 attack. And now Michigan can brand Jade Behemoth. Ohio State can respond with the Kazakis potion, but if they don't get a taunt, Michigan will simply win with the power of sheep.
Maybe, though, because if they play the Jade Behemoth, they can just attack twice with the minions on board and wipe it out. Or they could just use the Demon Wrath, wipe it out. Honestly, yeah, I don't know.
But these are big Jades.
Yeah, they're really big Jades. You're right.
I mean, this is a 9-9 and a 10-10.
And an 11-11. So Ohio State...
Come on, baby. I think that's what he's saying. I mean, this Kazakis potion is...
If they get a taunt off of this, that'll be nuts. Honestly, it has to be the specific taunt as well. Needs to be second rate bruiser. So if that's the case, they cannot afford to attack first, I don't think. Because this is going to add to the pool of minions that can be resurrected from this. They need to keep that pool undiluted. And
there are 5 minions on board for Michigan, so second rate bruiser has exactly 5 health. It doesn't matter if they trade into this Jade Behemoth right here.
I do really like looking at the Doomsayer and the Fade Leaf Toxin and just thinking of what could be, but it's going to boil down to the taunt. Ohio State needs a big resurrection taunt off of this, or they lose.
They don't get it. The Mountain Giant that was killed all the way back on turn 5. So close for Ohio State, managing to find their way back into that game. Close but no cigar, admirable.
The Jade games have been really close, too. I mean, they were a single taunt minion off of being in that game. If they got second-rate Bruiser, they slammed Jiraxis, and that's it.
Yeah.
Really close. So I actually feel like I only saw one Jade Idol that game. I really feel like I did. I'm probably wrong, but if that's the case, it is an example of when you should be utilizing your second Jade Idol properly. It provides an inevitability engine in this matchup. So if you give away that second Jade Idol and you can't shuffle anymore, that means that there are some opportunities where fatigue can close in on you.
Yeah, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they probably played 2. Neither of us are certain in this case because...
I'm going to say they saved it. I'm not even benefit of the doubt. I'm just assuming it got played at some point to accelerate Jade minions. But they had enough to get the job done at the end. But it came down...
very, very close.
Came down to a roll where usually I think they can just simply close it.
Yeah, well, either way, they managed to take it with the Jade Druid, finding a win with a deck that could have had a hard time. And we have another tweet ready to feature up on screen. This one comes to us from @CypherAdmin. It says, Core and Admirable, if you had to give one piece of advice to a new caster, what would it be?
Practice breathing. I think a lot of people don't put enough effort into that. I practice breathing about 30 minutes a day. And a lot of that comes from your diaphragm, down below. When you take a deep breath, everyone's chest always moves. That's not where you breathe from. You breathe from down here. So you take that deep breath.
Yeah.
Your stomach and your back and your sides, all that's where that expansion should come from. The work on your breathing, I think it's more important than just about anything else. Your voice has got to stay in shape.
This is a tough one for me. I mean, I came into Hearthstone casting last year and was new to Hearthstone casting as a whole, but I've been doing broadcast work all throughout high school and college. So I had some basis to come into, and I think we both had, public speaking experience. But if you're entirely new to casting, entirely new to public speaking as a whole, get used to talking to people, man. Talk to the barista at Starbucks. Talk to people that you meet on the street. Talk to, people in class behind you if you're supposed to be talking at that point in time. Because if you're not comfortable talking, if you can't make your thoughts known in an articulated fashion, then it's very, very difficult to build a career on something that requires talking all the time. So just get as comfortable with it as you possibly can. All right, if you guys have questions that you want to send us, tweet at Team Tespa or on Facebook /Team Tespa. You get that sweet $1 on Flame card back. We get to answer your questions. Clearly, we are experts on so many subjects, and our time is worth a lot.
Little in fact, I'm an expert on basically nothing. But
yeah, certainly not Hearthstone casting.
I got you there.
Done a lot of breathing myself. Singing will help you do that. And suddenly it has come down to the Priest deck for University of Michigan. They've gotten wins with the Druid and the Shaman. And Ohio State, no wins on board. It's the Druid, the Warlock, and the Rogue still left.
I have to say these 3 decks still look pretty good against Priest. I'd say at this point, though, that even though they may have, 360% matchups across the board and maybe, 75-ish in the Warlock case, that's still unfavored at the end of the day. That means there's 40% chances to succeed just against the Druid and the Rogue. So that alone would bring them into like the 64% range of success, even with 2 unfavored matchups in that spot. So it's still in the favor of Michigan here, even if it's 3 bad matchups.
Honestly, I would even almost hedge my bets and say the Priest, it may be an even matchup against the Jade Druid, because the Priest is a tempo deck. If they can get that early curve, then the Druid has a very hard time keeping up with high health minions. You have Cabal Talon Priest. You have minions that are 3 or 4 health that can then be, 7 or 8 health with Power Word Shield with all those buffs. If you can build an early board and keep it up, the Druid will have a very, very tough time actually keeping up with that.
That's definitely true. I have to admit that I am a bit of a Druid bias in this one, where I'm just a Druid elitist, and I think they beat Priest.
Druid snob. Like all those rogue players think that rogue's great at
Yeah,
everything.
the rogue players think they actually beat everything. I just think I beat Priest.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I'm not one of those guys.
All right, well, it is the Reno Warlock taking on Michigan's Priest. And Ohio State does have the Mountain Giant in hand. It's a good draw for them, but not quite as good as that Twilight Drake.
Yeah, so a little bit less impactful in this matchup due to Shadow Word Death, just being an immediate answer to it. And so for Michigan, it very much is about just getting off to that early start and trying to just push through the pressure. This is a matchup that is very unfavored for them, and they need to be landing big turns early on to force the pressure onto Ohio State. If they take this to the long game, eventually their resources get ground into dust, and that dust blows away in the wind. It is very long road for Michigan if they try to win a value battle here. I would likely think that Bran on turn 3 is going to be one of their better ways to win.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so many ways that Ohio State can deal 4 damage. Shadow Bolt or
That's about it.
bust at that point.
Yeah, I mean, there's no minion on board, so Bran is primed to live against every card except Shadow Bolt.
Man, Bran Talon Priest is... It's gross.
And they draw a dragon, too, so if they get past turn 4 with Bran in play, that means Draconid Operative starts to threaten some massive value. Yeah,
Yep.
This is a missed opportunity here.
I agree. I think this is just another instance of maybe not taking your time to see the potential of your plays.
Yeah, that being said, this is kind of interesting. Say there's no coin Twilight Drake, but instead it's something like Life Tap and Mistress of Mixtures. In that instance, they get to kill the Mistress of Mixtures and now drop Bran. And then suddenly Mountain Giant looks like a much more awkward play into the Bran.
That is
and
true.
So if they have Shadow Bolt, maybe then they play Shadow Bolt and forego the Mountain Giant for a turn. So there's arguments on both sides. I personally would have liked to see the Bran because if you land the Talon Priest on that, Bran's just not dying.
Yeah. Then they're forced to Blast Crystal your 3-drop.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
But, I mean, this is looking like it might work out. Michigan has more information now than they did on the previous turn.
Yeah. And now the Brand's actually protected from Shadow Bolt 100% because they picked up Power Word Shield. So this ended up working out better for them, I think.
I mean, they are putting on early pressure, and Ohio State does have the Mountain Giant. But if Michigan's
got secret agents coming through.
Yeah.
And normally he's just one secret agent. But when he's Brandon played, he becomes a double agent.
He's like the behavioral analysis unit
It's
of
like
the
James Bond.
FBI. Criminal minds up in here on this Draconid Operative. James Bond, yeah.
I mean,
There's nothing that the Operative can't do.
this is what happens when you land Brand with Draconid Operative, that you get movies made about you for decades.
Now you have the potential for 4 secret agents. Man, that's a spy squad right there.
It's a lot of agentry.
That's like Charlie's Angels.
Yeah, it's 100% Draconid Operative this turn, no questions asked.
Well, Drake can draw you 2 cards, but this is... Ooh, even playing the one that they just drew.
And they pick up another Bran! That's so sick!
Oh, man.
And the Dirty Rat can actually pull Jiraxis. That's one of the ways that Michigan outright loses the game is to the inevitability of Jiraxis. So this suddenly went from a game where they're massively unfavored to where they may be closing in on a favored position.
I mean, they're just going to have so much value, so many resources from these Draconid Operatives. And obviously, Discover is a great mechanic. It's even better here knowing that all 3 of your choices are something that your opponent is playing in their deck. It gives you information about what they don't have in their hand, and you know that the cards are going to be usable cards.
Yeah, that was a great turn
Love it.
for Michigan. And here, they hedge their bets against Mind Control Tech. At this point, if they don't get blown out of the water by some giant cards, they have a realistic chance here. And for Ohio State, now they got to attack Bran. Can't let that one keep going. And that means they're taking 8 points of damage from the board. This is starting to get scary.
Oh, man. What does Ohio State want to do here? Coin Emperor is...
It's pretty good.
It's a very nice hand to Emperor. And, I mean, granted, your opponent is playing Priest. They don't have any burst. The most they have is a Blackwing Corruptor. Bran Blackwing Corruptor can do 6.
But they're going to account for Bran being gone. You know, in Trinity Series, we hear the listing on the teams, the professionals very often consider a second brand when they've seen a Draconid operative.
Yeah. Seems crazy, but oh my goodness. This actually is going to be a bit difficult for Michigan to clear.
I mean, the Emperor's got to bite the dust. Oh, Michigan does not have the liberty of leaving Emperor around. That is a terrifying thought. And Ohio State does have Sylvanas in hand as well, which is one of the best cards in the deck versus Michigan.
Priests aren't running into him. There's no way to get rid of these Death Rattle minions unless you're going through them the hard way.
Silence has been teched into some of these builds, but
the occasional Mass Dispel. It's better against Rogue, though. You don't usually think, I'm going to bring Mass Dispel for Reno Lock.
Team Liquid straight up ran Silence, just the card Silence.
Did they really?
Yeah. It worked out really well. They actually won a game because it cost 0 mana instead of costing any mana.
Michigan picks up another Spite Historian. Again, just continuing with the sheer amount of value that they're getting from these cards.
Yeah, Nether Spite Historian actually does play a fairly important role in this matchup as well. In addition to finding more Draconid operatives, a lot of times the Priest out is to hit Nefarian off of Nether Spite Historian. And then have Nefarian find Sacrificial Pact. I mean, that is incredibly unlikely, but I've seen so many games boil down to just that instance needing to be true in order to win the game. And Ohio State's going to say, you know what, this board's getting too much. Let's just connect in the Shadow Flame.
I think that's perfectly reasonable here. Sylvanas is going to be an effective enough card against Priest because they simply do not have any way to remove it without the Death Rattle triggering. So you can separate the combo of Sylvanas Shadow Flame and just try to get value from both pieces individually.
Yeah, the Potion of Madness is also really interesting for Michigan as well, because once Ohio State lands their brand, if they have enough stuff in their hand to utilize brand, they can just take it and get even more battle cries. There's a lot of potential value for Michigan in this game, and Shadow Word Pain definitely slated. Very few targets in Ohio State's deck that Shadow Word Pain is effective against.
And the Potion of Madness, little known fact, gives that minion charge when you use the card. So you can Potion of Madness a brand, get all your value from it, and then attack into one of Ohio State's minions, get rid of the brand.
Sylvanas here is awfully awkward for Michigan. It's a tough one to deal with. We see them teched in Defender of Argus as well. We heard one of the teams yesterday say that they put Defender of Argus in the deck to specifically target aggression.
Yeah.
Just that little bit more. So the Potion of Madness is very consistent with that choice as well.
Right, in Ohio State deciding to forego the Sylvanas, and instead they're going to go a bit wide on board. This gets heavily punished by Dragonfire Potion. Or even just Holy Nova if Michigan were to have it.
Dragonfire Potion, a card that a lot of the builds have trimmed, but it certainly is a very powerful tool if you're facing against a lot of mid-range shamans. And I've seen it creep back in. With the Defender of Argus and the Potion of Madness, I imagine that slot has been cut. Very few flexible cards in the Dragon Priest builds.
Yeah, not a lot of room for surprising tech choices here.
I'm on board with more Secret Agents coming through. But I'm on board with a lot of stuff here. This is a good hand.
You would need to Nether Spite first. They do not actually have a dragon in hand other than the Draconid Operative.
Look at this.
Oh.
That's clever.
That's beautiful. Okay,
oh, look at that
was fantastic.
And look at the smile on their face, too. They know that it's a good play. This is great.
Talk about getting use out of the Potion of Madness.
Wow. I mean, that was sick.
Dang. Good on you, Michigan.
This board's not quite good enough to Twisting Nether, but I'll tell you what, that Northshire Cleric is awfully scary.
Kazakas for a 5-mana potion and hope that you get 4 damage to all. That'd be pretty sweet
looking
here.
Like where it's headed, but that's a win for Michigan at that point. It means that the potion would be gone right away. Yeah, I think Sylvanas is going to look a little bit better here. Just start creating the board tension and threaten steals, but Michigan's starting to pull ahead.
I mean, they still have 2 extra dragons, from Nether Spite Historian, which at this point in the game can be Ysera, Nefarian, Onyxia, really high-value minions that are very, very difficult for the Warlock to remove.
Yeah, I think Sylvanas here has just got to be the play. I mean, they're falling into a really poor position. The resources have just they've kind of been sloshed around for a while, and it's created this board state where they're just not creeping ahead far enough.
They do have a Holy Nova in the build.
Yeah, I think Holy Nova is fairly common. So if this would be Defender of Argus runs into the Bruiser, Northshire Cleric runs over the Imp, and then you Holy Nova. The problem is that Sylvanas just sitting on board, looming and threatening value. I'm curious if maybe loading up the board with Netherspite Historians to reduce a percentage of steal is a big benefit right now.
Well, I'm seeing a world where you Holy Nova first, run the Argus into the Bruiser. I mean, you can run the Cleric into the Sylvanas if you really don't want Ohio State to steal anything, and then just trade the
Just double
Argus
trade.
as much as it sucks,
Yeah,
or
I'm
you can just
okay
go
with this.
face.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see the double trade. I think it's wise. It mitigates the problem as much as possible. It avoids any potential steal shenanigans, and now they get to set up their brand turn the following.
There's
And-
Onyxia
oh.
and Deathwing Dragonlord.
Baby, those are good ones.
Yeah, both of those looking pretty good. Deathwing Dragonlord, very resistant to single target removal, because then it threatens even more dragons coming on board. Onyxia gets checked by Twisting Nether, but you have another Netherspite Historian.
Well, there's the Jiraxxus, and Ohio State looks like they're going to play it right away. So that's a sudden turn in the game where they have Twisting Nether and they have landed Jiraxxus on board, and Michigan happen to have nothing. So they're playing quite literally as Twisting Nether and then make an Infernal on the following turn. Michigan needs to find something big here. So it's the Bran, the Secret Agent's coming through, and the Netherspite Historian.
There's Ragnaros.
I'll tell you what, I'm taking Rag.
I mean, I can see reasons for both of the others. You haven't seen Kazakus yet from your opponent, so Dirty Rat could potentially pull that.
Two Blast Crystal. Oh my god.
Two Rag?
Two Ragnaroses. Oh my. Oh, it would have been so beautiful.
No, they didn't do it.
But now,
I think that's fine.
two shots at Nefarian.
There it is.
Oh my gosh, Cora, the dream is real.
Admirable. What are the odds that it happens twice in 1 week? I don't see this happening.
In a
I don't see
Deathwing.
it. Deathwing. Now that's cool. I see that happening 10 times more than Second Sacrificial Pact.
What if they just took the Deathwing Dragonlord, though? I mean, look how many dragons they have in hand. They have 18 power or 16 power dragons in hand. If they just played the Deathwing Dragonlord, it threatens Ohio State with lethal. And if they Twisting Nether it, you just get 8/8s in play.
I mean, even though these are dragons with great battle
Brand
cries.
gets drawn.
Oh, goodness gracious.
This game's insane.
This game's dirty.
Engaging TC-130 until
Okay. That's terrible.
It's a 50-50 steal for something they want, but
Oh my god, if they had mind control tech to the Bran and then Bran Kazakus.
it's like, look. That's the
have
size of my
never-
puppy.
I have never seen a double Bran Kazakus.
I think it just happens once. Like, it only, like, you get 2 battle cries still.
Oh, you think? Oh,
I think so. Because it's battle cries triggered twice, not
Man.
an additional time.
That's so sad. Well, no wonder I haven't seen it. It doesn't exist. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, they're down to 12. They do have to keep in mind their life total here.
Going to be interesting to see
Yeah,
how many
this-
cards Ohio State
This
is
could
at.
be game. This Deathwing Dragonlord is absurd right here. Ohio State doesn't have a way to take care of this.
They would have to potentially nether the Deathwing Dragonlord, and then that would leave them open to 16 power on board from Nefarian and Onyxia.
You got to play the Nefarian first, though, right?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. You have Blast Crystal Potion in your hand, meaning that your opponent still either has it in their deck or it's in their hand. So you just saw Siphon Soul. You haven't seen Twisting Nether.
They're loading up. They're just going to Nixia, and this is going to mean Twisting Nether at this point. I don't know. It could be Bran Kazakus still. I don't really know what they would be fishing for at that point.
I mean, you brand Kazakus. If worse comes to worse, you can Shadow Bolt, run your 2 minions into the Onyxia, but then that's 6 power on board. Rag to the face is lethal then.
This is a weird game.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a weird game. It's not usual that you see the Priest getting quite this much value from their Nether Spites, from their Draconid Operatives. I don't know. Do you agree with the brand Kazakus here, Admirable?
I mean, I would have Twisting Nether about 16 turns ago. It feels like
Yeah.
as soon as I got the Dragons down, my plan would have been Twisting Nether, make 6/6.
What do you think they're holding on to the Nether for, though? I mean, obviously Michigan has an abundance of cards in their hand, but you got to turn the tide somewhere if you're Ohio State.
That's what I'm thinking too. And you know, the minor chipping away they've been doing is not really impacting that much. And the more life they lose, like you said, that's just one Ragnaros shot away from losing the game.
I mean, that's what it is right now.
I mean, this Michigan does have a 33% chance to close immediately if they played Rag, and then they draw their own Ragnaros.
They could have had 3 Rags this game, Admirable. Holy moly. Do you go for it? It's 33%. To just win the game. You know your opponent has just taken 2 Kazakus potions.
They do have to be somewhat worried about return damage at a certain point, but if they push Ohio State down to 8, they're going to have 2 opportunities to close with Ragnaros.
Ohio State still has Reno.
One of them will
in their deck.
One of them will be 33%. One of them will be 50% if it goes as planned here, which is Ragnaros number 1 fails to hit, Twisting Nether into Infernal, and then slam the other Ragnaros.
Mm-hmm.
So how much return damage do they take if they miss both of those shots is the question. And I don't think it's quite enough. And they also have to consider the possibility of armor from a Kazakus potion.
Oh,
There's
no.
a lot going on here.
No. 33% Michigan. I mean, this is fine, too.
It's pretty good.
This pulls the Twisting Nether, likely. Well, actually, we have to know what these Kazakus potions did. None of them are polymorph.
They got to fear the Twisting Nether, too. Like, what's coming out of that Deathwing Dragon Lord?
I mean, they saw 2 Nether Spite Historians, one of them with Bran. They did see Onyxia, and now they've seen Deathwing Dragon Lord. So if they were counting, they know there's 1 dragon left from Nether Spite. But potentially, Twilight Guardians in hand, potentially an Azure Drake. Like, that's enough at this point. That's enough to close out the game.
I really wanted the Nefarian to close, but this is cool as well.
It's not Deathwing regular, but
This is way cooler
He's
than
cool.
regular Deathwing. This is like the ultimate haunted creeper.
I don't know if it gets cooler than regular Deathwing. The ultimate haunted creeper.
I mean, it's a 12-12
Come
that
on, man.
spawns an 8-8. That's great.
Okay, how about the ultimate Nerubian egg?
I'll give you that, too. Either
Fine.
one.
Next Ramus has
Oh
tainted us
my.
for the world. Here we go.
Oh, no.
I mean, that's a 50-50 for lethal now with the rag.
Wow.
If Michigan had 1 more mana, they could death and rag, and it would be lethal. I mean, you go for it. If
Giddy
you
up.
miss, you kill the 6/6. Either way, you're putting yourself in such a favorable position. Like, there's nothing else you can hope for as the priest in this game.
Yeah, the golden rag for sure, too.
Oh,
This one never
absolutely.
misses.
Play your opponent's rag just to rub it in.
Look at Ohio State's reaction, too.
So stressed. Oh, my goodness. That's it.
Connects, and Michigan going to take it 3-0 over Ohio State in a crazy Dragon Priest versus Reno Warlock matchup. Cora, I have never seen a Dragon Priest do quite as much work as Michigan did in that game. That was nuts.
I don't know that I've ever seen quite so many high-value dragons coming off of Nether Spite Historian, but when you get 2 brands, you get 2 rags, you get Blast Crystal Potion, you get Deathwing Dragon Lord Onyxia and Nefarian. Turns out the Dragon Priest can do a lot.
That was
and
nuts.
man, what a dominating performance. University of Michigan 3-0 over Ohio State. The Ohio State University is pretty much everybody who went to Ohio State never lets you forget. But this has just been
Someone's
an
not salty at all.
absolutely fantastic series. I mean, I will say I tend to prefer Michigan, but this is one of those rivalries that creates tension. It creates biases. I don't have anything against the Ohio State Hearthstone players. I'm sure they're fantastic people. Their school annoys me a little bit.
This just goes to show you that no one's ever down and out, regardless of the situation. Use the cards
Absolutely.
the best you can. Find as much value as you can. Try to find a setup that your opponent cannot stop. That's what Michigan did in this game. And wow, what a game we got because of it. That was just sick.
It was an absolutely incredible series. Again, 3-0 for University of Michigan. It felt like a long series, but in actuality, it was
And it was, but
pretty quick.
That's the nature of the way that we got these games. It was a Jay Drew game that went the distance. Dragon Priest game went the distance. I mean, we saw everything played. It's how those games go sometimes.
Absolutely.
Brand's
Well, we
some
have.
good.
Oh, Brand is so good. But we'll ask University of Michigan exactly what they think of Brand Brownsbeard. We have an interview with our winning team right here. Can you guys hear us?
Yes. How are you doing?
Well,
Fantastic.
we're doing great, but I'm sure that you're doing even better after a 3-0 victory over Ohio State University. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you very much. It was definitely a hard-fought match. I'll say that much.
Matches.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure your mom is very proud, whoever's mom it is. And let's just go ahead. Just one mom. So just going to go ahead and ask, how did you guys come together and form your team?
We've been friends for a while.
Esports club?
Yeah, we're all part of the esports club at the University of Michigan. And we actually made a couple different teams for the Tespa tournament, and we just happened to be one of them.
Yeah, it says here that your school has 5 different teams, and you guys are doing fantastic, a 3-0 record in the 3rd week of play. So tell us a little bit about this esports club. It seems like they're popping up at colleges all over the country.
Yeah, so I'm on the board actually for esports club. It's for Hearthstone, it's pretty small. Our league community is really big, but as far as our esports club here, we have a lot of events like every other week. So it's really nice to have people come out and bring their rigs and stuff. Like watching people lug their huge towers through the school buildings and like getting their friends to drag their monitors. Oh yeah, we have a tower here.
We have a tower right here, actually.
Yeah,
just
buddy.
dragging it through the school. It's pretty entertaining to watch, So
It's always a good time on Friday nights.
yeah.
Amen to that. So last game was just unbelievable. Like, what a nuts game that I've seen. Yesterday, we saw a sacrificial pact happen on Jiraxis. When you guys got the Nefarian, how badly did you want to see the sacrificial pact from Nefarian land on Jiraxis?
Oh, we really thought about that. We were like, we want the sack pact from the Nefarian, but we also knew that if we played the Deathwing Dragonlord and left that to be taken onto the battlefield by the Deathwing, there was pretty much no way we could lose to any board clear.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's certainly how it ended up working out. Just take us through how you guys built your lineup. We see the Priest and the Druid, which are both, pretty common when you're playing one of them, but both of them together. Why did you choose to do that?
So one thought is we really didn't want to play Pirate Warrior because entire ladder is Pirate Warrior. So we just thought about other decks that are pretty strong. Maybe tier 2 decks, but they're always fun to play. Druid is infinite value. Priest just has a lot of tempo-oriented plays, has big minions, and plays well against a lot of the aggro decks out there. So they're just strong decks that are in our lineup. But we're pretty versatile. We can switch up decks as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely what the self-ban format gives you the liberty of doing. Well, congratulations, guys. Seriously, very well done. And best of luck going on in the rest of the tournament.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hope to see you guys
you.
again.
All right. Well, they said it themselves. Sometimes you bring decks that you don't see on the ladder, and in a format like this, it can work out.
And it worked out for them brilliantly. I'm still blown away. It's just sometimes you see crazy games and you're like, I never experienced anything like that.
You inspired to go home and play some Dragon Priest Admirable?
No, but
Gonna go grind some games.
I'm definitely inspired to watch some Dragon Priest.
Fair enough. Let's go ahead and look at a recap of the day. We started off with the East Region, Columbia 3-2 over Laval. Then Miami U beat Illinois Tech 3-1. And of course, we just saw Michigan 3-0 over Ohio State. So actually, over both days, we saw every range of possible match scores. So it was a lot of variety this week. Certainly certainly a lot of variety in games and matchups, and really, what an incredible week 3.
It was delivered on all fronts. I mean, we got wonderful blowout games. We had wonderful games where players had to manage their resources properly, and we saw some players do that very effectively, and some teams slip up in a few spots and cost themselves. And then we saw these crazy games with these incredible finishes and multiple different ways to try and set up kills that all had some sort of counterplay available. I could not have asked for more from a single day of Hearthstone.
Well, let us know what you guys think. Any questions you want to ask us? Let us know what you thought about the teams that are playing and who you're supporting. Tweet at Team Tespa or go on Facebook /Team Tespa. And of course, if we choose your tweet to be featured on stream, we're done for this week, but we will be back the next several weeks, Admirable and I, and we are going to keep answering your Twitter questions, and we're going to keep handing out Dollar on Flame card backs to the viewers whose tweets get featured on the stream. So make sure you keep those tweets coming. Of course, we have to thank our sponsors. We are powered by Twitch here at the ESL Studios in Burbank. And of course, special thanks to Gunner and SteelSeries for making this entire tournament possible. Without it, we wouldn't have this prize pool. We wouldn't have these awesome collegiate players competing for a chance to take home the money, take home the pride, and maybe even change their lives. So, Admirable, that's just about going to do it for us this week. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Just thank y'all for watching, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the Collegiate National Championships. I think every week's just going to get better and better.
I mean, if this is how crazy it can get for, these games, and it's only week 3. Imagine how fantastic it's going to be when we get to the live national championships. 2 teams from each region battling it out. Of course, teams with a 5-2 record are going to end up moving on to the regional finals, and from there, man, I can't imagine it getting any better. So that's just about going to do it for us today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will be back next week, same time, same place, with more collegiate Hearthstone action. We'll see you then.